heard this is a grown-up Diddy Kong. Oh, but boy, am I excited for that. Howdy folks, welcome to another edition of Industry Influencers, a series where we take a look at video games that had a big impact on the video game industry and talk about how exactly they achieved that. And today, in honor of, the coming release of the Nintendo Switch 2, I figured it was time to cover the big hairy ape himself, and I'm of course talking about Donkey Kong. Released in, I want to say 1981. The original Donkey Kong was Nintendo's second arcade machine. Their first was the incredibly unsuccessful Radar Scope, which didn't do as well as Nintendo was hoping because it was in essence just a space shooter, which were a dime a dozen at the time. Left with a huge stockpile of unsold arcade machines, the president of Nintendo brought in a new designer he had hired called Shigeru Miyamoto and asked if there was anything that could be done to make the game appeal to a wider audience. Miyamoto didn't think there was anything that could be done, so they had to start from scratch. What would follow would be the creation of the original Donkey Kong, which was just a huge hit when it first came out. When Donkey Kong hit the scene, Nintendo became essentially the legend that they are today. Launched the career of Shigeru Miyamoto. It was another mark on the, success story that was the life of Gunpei Yokoi. It was just a huge game for its time. And though I feel like Donkey Kong's overall contributions to the video game industry have been somewhat forgotten over the years, it is still pretty impressive how much this little arcade game has influenced the industry for years to come. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at 3 ways that Donkey Kong has impacted the video game industry. For starters, Donkey Kong was one of the first times where story really mattered in a video game. When Shigeru Miyamoto started development, one of the first things he did was, write a story. And, that also played into how the game was designed because, it was a point A to point B game. Most games at the time were pretty much score attack games. It was all about getting a high score, essentially so you could keep playing. This was a time when video games were very much just games and nothing else. Donkey Kong, on the other hand, told a story, a plumber or carpenter at the time trying to save his girlfriend from a rampaging gorilla. Though very basic for the time, it actually did play a big part in how the game was designed, and it's something that would eventually become commonplace in the industry. Not too long after the release of Donkey Kong came, the NES, and the NES is really where it became popular for games to be made with the point of actually completing them rather than just playing them innocently and trying to get a high score. Now, that's not to say there aren't games like that that are still released today, but they aren't as prevalent as they used to be. And for me, Donkey Kong really is responsible for that because it just would usher in a whole new era of game design where, games could actually tell compelling stories rather than just, being something that you kill a few hours with or try to challenge your friends with. Another area where Donkey Kong was really significant was it was one of the first times a video game had really garnered mass appeal outside of video game circles. Because the cartoony nature of the characters and how well designed it all was, Donkey Kong just had this long-lasting appeal to it. Even today, these characters are still around and they're still recognizable in this original game. And even at the time of its release, Nintendo was heavily merchandising the original Donkey Kong. You had toys, there was sort of an animated series. It was part of a variety show starring different video game characters. he actually had ports of the game to various home consoles, which is funny to think today because now Mario is strictly limited to Nintendo consoles. And yeah, like, and that's something that still continues today. Like, it seems like any game designer would want nothing more than for their game to garner the same long-lasting legacy that, you know, the Super Mario Bros. Series would have. And even now, the Mario Bros. Series is still one of the most recognizable brands in the entire industry. You know, they just had a major motion picture a couple years ago, and now they're talking the sequels coming out. That kind of marketing really started with the original Donkey Kong, so that's something else that we have to thank it for. However, I think Donkey Kong's greatest contribution to the video game industry should be plainly obvious. This is really the game that popularized the idea of the platformer. While I'm sure there were other games before Donkey Kong that would resemble what we know today as a platformer, Donkey Kong was really the game that made it as popular as it is today. And you can really see a subtle progression of how you know, the platforming genre sort of evolved from Donkey Kong, because after the original Donkey Kong came Donkey Kong Jr., which, you know, mixed up the formula a little bit, and that spun off into the first Mario Bros. Game, which eventually led to, you know, Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is, you know, the game that really perfected what the 2D platformer would ultimately become, and, you know, eventually Super Mario 64, which perfected the 3D platformer. So, and it all started with the original Donkey Kong. So even though I don't think this game is quite as popular as it used to be, I mean, it's still very well loved. I mean, just this first stage here is still one of the most iconic in any video game, period. Even people who have never played Donkey Kong recognize this screen. But, you know, people really do underestimate how much of an impact that this little game made when it initially came out. And, you know, it's still fun to play today, so yeah, it's really exciting to see another Donkey Kong game coming out. You know, I am disappointed that we are losing the Rareware design, but the new design is still good. And it does look like a really interesting game. Like, it's cool that we're getting another 3D Donkey Kong game. So, yep, all hail to the king, baby. Or wait, this isn't King Kong. This is Donkey Kong. Well, I guess, let's just go ahead and say it, Banana Slamma. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Industry Influencers, guys. Tune in next time, and also be sure to tune in tomorrow for the showcase, where we take a look at the first game of the Donkey Kong Country series. Hope to see you guys then.